things I wanted to ask you about. That it must so you because you were saying before, like other girls at school went to dances and stuff. It must have been strange for you to be around boys since you
Oh
never
yeah,
saw any. Like, what
yeah.
about the older boys that came in?
Yeah, see, I didn't pay attention to them, but Patsy kind of liked them. And Mary might have too, I'm not sure. But they were kind of cute. We had a couple of cute ones, but I really didn't bother with them because I didn't know how to go about any of that stuff. That's why I got so mad at that nun for beating me that time for flirting, which I didn't even know what that meant. But Patsy did like the older boys. They were cute kids. They really were cute kids. I guess I considered, I don't know, I never thought about trying to get, even the priests. We had a lot of nice looking young priests that came over to the home too. But they never bothered anybody. They went sledding with the kids, and they went to picnics with us sometime. They were nice young fellows, seminarians, and that's the boys we saw. But as far as talking to boys like a one-on-one thing as a friend, you didn't know how to do it. It was like they were in a whole other culture. You didn't know how to do it. I don't know how I first gone to the dances, I guess, with all the people I lived with, starting to go to the dances. That's how I got to talk. I would go with certain girls and we would meet together, and then there were certain guys who would come over to that corner and talk to us and ask you to dance, which I didn't know how to dance either. I'd say no, and then they'd call you a snob. You really weren't being a snob, you just didn't know how to dance. I still don't know how to dance. Never did know how to dance. And then you would dance with them and talk to them, and I never really went. I went out with a couple of guys that I liked all right, but I just didn't know how to treat them like you treat a girl. Do you know what I mean? It just was different. Until I met Franny, really. He's the first one that I ever really went with. And then we got engaged. And then we got married. No, it was hard to talk, to relate to boys or to men. It really was. Even men. There were never men around, only they would be a priest or daddy. That's all. So you really didn't see any men, so to speak. And I don't know. I never paid much attention to the older boys. I knew they were cute. I thought they were cute, but I never had any kind of a case on any one of them. You know, I don't. They might have been too young for me, for all I know. But Patsy did. I know.
Yeah, she said she went
Yeah,
to the movies once with you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Patsy was cute. She went out with a lot of cute guys. Everybody had a case on Patsy.
What about on the outings? There were boys sometimes, weren't there? That
Oh yeah, we liked that too. I did like that. You liked the attention because they would whistle at you or something. But we went to Woodside every year. We went to, I told you, Gimbel's, who owned Gimbel's Department Store, used to take us every year to the circus. And I look back now and I think that was wonderful of that man to take all the orphans. I really do. But we hated the circus. I hated the circus. I think my sisters did too. It stunk out loud. And you saw all these people that were too skinny or too fat. It was horrible. But the boys, you'd see the boys from the other places. I told my husband told me one time, my mother used to say to me, if you don't behave, you'll go where those kids. And he says, we'd go to the circus and the orphans would be there. You're going to go live in the orphanage. His mother used to threaten him. And he said, we all thought you people were weird. See, because we were there with nuns and all together. But then Woodside Park was nice. I think that was around June or July, I think. Every year we went to Woodside. The Knights of Columbus did that too. God bless them. And we had box lunches, which was the best kind of lunch. We never had anything like, but nice sandwiches and cakes and fruit. Nice big white box. And the kids, we went out in buses, and we had the park to ourselves the whole day. But the boys would come from the other orphanages, the boys' orphanage. And oh, we loved those days because then they would whistle at us or say something to us or walk with us. And I thought that was nice. But I never heard from any of them afterwards. We never took addresses down or wrote to anybody. But it was a nice, fun day. That was nice, yeah. That was when you saw nice boys. They were nice boys.
I know once you were telling me before about your father coming to Ireland, coming from Ireland, and not really knowing anything. And
Yeah.
could you just tell me a little bit about them, like how to get over here?
Now remember that tape I have for you. Uh, I don't know. All I know what is from what Daddy said is, and listening through the years to his relatives, that each person that came here, the money was raised for the one person to come. Then that person had to save money to send for the next person. And that's how they did it. That was how they got here. So Daddy he must have been the first in his family to come here because he was the oldest. No, I'm wrong. Aunt Mary was here before Daddy. She lived up Mount Airy. She married Pete Haney. She was here before Daddy, and she sent money for Daddy to come. And then Daddy came, and that's how they all ended up like in Germantown and all, because they came to where their relatives were. So it was his turn to come. See, he probably would have been drafted into the English army if he didn't come here. But I don't know how old Daddy was when I think about it. He was born in 1898. And I don't know how old he was when he came here, about 20 or something years old. I don't know that. Maybe Nellie knows. And he came to this country, and then he sent for his other sister, Aunt Nellie, and then they sent for Uncle Packy. So that's how he got here. So he didn't know anybody except Aunt Mary when he came here. And he lived there for a while, I understand. And then he started looking for work. You walk around Chestnut Hill and would say, Irish need not apply. He told me that story many times. So he started to get work wherever he could. He helped to build the subway, and he worked on that. Any place he could make a couple dollars, that's where he went. And then they all got together, the Irish people, and they started having these clubs wherever Daddy's was, where they danced, and they had clubs where they drank. And they met each other, and that's how he met my mother. My mother had also come over. She was a Sweeney. They sent for each other. And she had older sisters here, and they sent the money for her to come over here. So they met each other at a dance, as far as I know. And they were both very good dancers, and the four of us couldn't have a lick out of any of us, all put together. That's because we never did it, I guess. But anyhow, the two of them were good dancers, and they met each other, and they must have gone out together for a while before they got married. Or they met each other pretty late, because when I look back down, I realize when my mother died, Daddy had to be 36 years old. And they weren't married that long when they had the kids, because we came one right after the other. And I'm sure they weren't married, so they mustn't have got married till she was around 30, which never dawned on me before. So therefore, what was he doing all those years in between? And what year did he come here? See, that's what we have to find out, Kathy, because I don't know. I really don't know. But he came here and he loved this. My father loved this country very, very much, and he said it often, that he missed his family. He wrote to his mother all the time. He got letters from his mother all the time. And he missed his family, but he loved living in America. Because even when he married Mary Reedy, and they went back, for 7 years they lived in Ireland. Daddy was never happy there. All he did was push to come home, and he finally did come home. And he said he felt like he was home then, because he loved this country. He said it gave him so many opportunities. He didn't have it easy, but he was grateful. So that's all I remember about Daddy. I can't imagine how many years he was here before he met my mother and married my mother. I don't know that.
And he never saw his parents again.
Never laid eyes on them. He married Mary Reedy in 1949, and he went home. That was the first time he went home. They went on a ship, and that's the first time his mother was long gone by then. So he didn't see his mother. He did see a couple of brothers, but he didn't see his mother again.
Do you remember anything about the first day you went to the home?
No, see, I don't, Kathy. All I know is we were all sitting against a wall somewhere, And if I can remember, we were crying. I guess 'cause Daddy was leaving. I don't know. I remember. I don't. I remember feeling lost. 'Cause I don't think we were prepared for anything. We kind of. I knew when my mother died. I don't think anybody ever told us she was going to die, which I guess you don't tell kids. But you kind of knew it because she was so sick. Like we couldn't even be in the room with her sometimes because even the noise hurt her. She was in a lot of pain. And Daddy used to take us out on a Sunday, and the neighbor would come in and sit with her just to get us out of the house so we wouldn't be making so much noise. But nobody prepared us for it or for the home either because Daddy was devastated. And he just didn't discuss it with us because we were kids, and it was always, you know, you don't talk in front of kids. So they didn't talk in front of us. But I think we were sad. If I can remember, I'm sitting against a wall crying. That's what I remember. But I don't know how long I was sad or anything. I can't recall any of that. You know, I really don't know, honey.
And do you think that each of you has a different perspective on your time spent there?
Yeah, I guess so. I think so. I think I think Nellie was accepting more than I was, and Mary was, and Patsy. Patsy seemed to have a good time all the time to me. I think I was the maddest, and I don't know why, of us, and I was. I was mad at the nuns. I was mad at the fact that I was there at all. I wasn't mad at Daddy. For some reason, Daddy had to be protected because he was sad. Daddy was sad. And he lived in a room, mind you, for years and years and years, and came to see us on a Sunday. Now, I don't care what generation you're living in, there's not many men who would go through what he went through because he loved us so much. I told him one time, I said, Daddy, I always thought you loved me the most. And he said, didn't you know I knew you had to think that? I followed him around all the time, but we didn't talk a whole lot. You know, I would just follow him around. He was cutting the grass. I had to go down to see where he was. If I didn't know where he was, I had to know where he was because I was always worried he might be drinking too much. But I never was mad at him for drinking because he was sad. And that's why, in a way, when he married Mary Reedy, and I didn't like her at all. She was a mean lady. But she was good to Daddy that he had a home, because that meant so much to him to have a home to live in, a home with 2 floors and a place he could cut the grass and wash the windows, a place for him to be. And that's all he ever cared about, was that we were, wherever we were okay. And I think, I don't know, my sisters maybe took it better than I did, all of them. But nobody ever knew that I never said anything to anybody, that I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I didn't hate every minute of every day, and there were a lot of good things, but I didn't like living there. And I think it affected my whole life. Not having a mother affected my whole life. And I hope to God my kids know how much I love them, because they're my reason for being now. The same way we were his reason for being. There we go again.
Well, it must have been very, very hard.
It was hard for me, and I don't know why, because I never had anybody to say I'm mad. I never had anybody to say anything to. We didn't talk. You just didn't talk to your sisters about that kind of stuff. I didn't. I didn't talk to anybody. I was kind of a loner. I think I was living every day to start living my life, whatever that was going to be, and it took me all those years to do it. Until I was, 30 years old. Until I lived here. So that was 1954. So I was, 27 years old. And only after that did I feel, now this is my life, that I felt I had some control over it. And my kids, I loved having my kids, each one of them. And I hope they're happy kids too.
What is the most vivid memory you have about life in the home? Does anything just come to mind?
Living with people who didn't care about you. Of course, I'm not saying I had many vibes to make them care about me either, but that they didn't care about the kids that they were taking care of. I feel that most of the nuns that lived there were only trying to get out of there, to go to their fancier establishments and not be with the orphans. I could be totally wrong, but that's how I feel that they felt. I don't think they gave us any respect, or certainly no love. If it wasn't for Daddy, I'm telling you, I wouldn't have had any love at all, I think. Or my sisters as we got older. But that's how I feel. They didn't give us any kind of no guidance, no caring. And the poor kids that left there, God knows what happened to them. I hope their lives turned around. It wasn't a happy upbringing, even though we had some happy times. It wasn't, I accept it, and I'm not angry anymore, but I wish I didn't have to live there.
Aunt Nellie mentioned that she felt that, you can play that.
What, Nellie, what?
She mentioned that she felt that you guys were better off than the relatives who lived in New Jersey because they were so
She was poor. Oh, that I'm not taking any away from meeting. Yeah, and I understand Nellie's viewpoint. I felt the same way. In fact, sometimes I felt I was better than they were. But to me, that was only a defense mechanism. Annie was so poor. It's awful how poor she was. Her sisters gave her money, but her husband never worked. She had a whole bunch of kids. And they were poor. I was happy I didn't live there. Don't misunderstand, but I didn't belong there. And I didn't belong in the home either. So it isn't that none of those relatives really cared enough about us either. But again, that was the times. Daddy cared the most about us. Those people all had their own problems raising their kids. It was a hard time. In society, it was depression time. It was tough. They all had a hard time. But I never felt like it was a real way to live a life in this enormous place with these big dining rooms with 100 people in it and bedrooms with 50 people in it and clapping hands and ringing bells and going to mass at somebody's whim and praying when they said so and doing this, and it just wasn't a normal way to be brought up. That's how I feel. And that's how I felt then, and I still feel that way. Now, Nellie was the oldest, and the Irish people have a habit of saying to the oldest kid, and now, your mother's gone and it's your responsibility, which is very unfair to do to a kid. She was only 11 months older than I am, and it's not fair for her to feel that, even if she didn't have to do it, to feel that she had to do it was awful. It was awful to do to a kid. Terrible. But no, Nellie, they all seemed happy. We all seemed happy. We all had a face on us. But I kind of was a loner more so than they were. I didn't feel like a loner. I didn't think about it that way. But when I look back, I know I was. If I had any friend at the time, it was a friend that the nuns were picking on. That's who I would befriend. So I could fight for them when they got in trouble too.
You never talked. So did you talk back to the nuns?
Oh yeah, me. I did all the time, hon. Always. Anything that they said that would get my back up, I would say something, and you weren't supposed to answer them back. Not that I didn't know that. But I would get hit more than, you ask my sisters, I got hit the most. I got the most trouble because I would answer them back when I thought they needed it. And I didn't like them. I used to sit and listen to them talk about the one that wasn't there, the nun that wasn't there, or outside their room, their community room, they called it. And there was one little sister who came not too many years before I left, Sister Lucia. I really liked her, and she liked me too. But they didn't like her because she was holy and she prayed a lot. She was very quiet and very gentle. And they would talk about her because she wasn't in the community room about, I wonder what she's doing now. The nuns, mind you. These people that are supposed to give you a good example. Of course, they didn't know I was outside listening either. And they just, and some of the nuns, Sister Amelia in particular, would tell about the kids if their mother wasn't married, which you didn't even know what that meant at the time. Did you know so-and-so's mother's not married? She would tell the kids, and she's a sister. Glory be to God, what does that mean? So I didn't even know what she was talking about even then. What does that mean that she's not married? How the hell did I know? They never told us anything, what to do, what not to do. They just punish you if you did something wrong. But you never got any advice on how to live your life. What you should do or shouldn't do about anything, just the 10 Commandments and church. No real important stuff that you needed to live day by day. So I'm sure a lot of the kids that got out of there made a lot of mistakes. God knows where they went.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you about just because I wouldn't know to think about it that you want to add?
No, I don't want, and I don't want it to appear that I'm not a happy person, because I am. It's hard to go back over this stuff, but everything that happened because of the times. And because my mother died, and my father had no way to keep us, it was during the Depression, and Daddy did the best he could, always. And I'm sure those nuns in those days probably did the best they could. And I'm not bitter, I'm not mad at God, I totally believe in God. I'm not mad at anybody. It just was a hard way to be brought up. But I hope it made me be more broad-minded and a better mother than I would have been normally. And I know had we been raised in a regular home, at least we would have had a mother's guidance. And I feel that not having a mother at such early ages affects your whole life. But I don't want to appear bitter because I'm not bitter. I'm grateful for the clothes on my back and the shoes on my feet, the roof over my head.